Hello everyone. I'm going to try to multitask here and I'm going to be folding laundry while I talk to you because busy life, busy mom, busy wife, busy everything. But anyways, so I have my Christian hairstyle, by the way. And when we grew up in church, a lot of women wear their hair like this, and I don't know why, but I was getting major like Grace Baptist vibes with this hair. So it'd be like subtle, curls at the bottom with the nice bangs and like up in their clips. I don't know what it was about the style, but like a lot of like, I don't know, it's just Christian vibes to me. But mainly it was like the smooth clip that was like gold or silver, like the smooth kind of clip, not these pinchy ones. This was definitely a popular clip that I used to use, but yeah, so every time I wear my hair like this, I just think of Grace Baptist and Christian hairstyles, and there were some other ones that were really popular back in the day. Just kind of cracks me up, the things that you remember and the little details of, the good Christian women in our church. And kind of like they had their own little stereotypes of what they would wear. And then we ended up visiting Gaylord a month ago, I think now. And we spotted some people that was like, wow, those straight up look like Grace people. And it's just really funny how even in like Christian circles, Baptist circles, whatever, maybe whatever religion it is, like you can tell, like you can spot them right away just by like little fine details that they kind of stick to a routine or stick to a certain way they dress or the way they talk, and it's just funny. So that's not at all what I want to talk about, but I do want to talk a little bit about respect, because ever since I saw the or actually heard the audios of Johnny Depp and Amber, which I know everyone's been talking about them way too much and everyone's over it. But I've probably talked about this a little bit before in my other videos, but I didn't like rewatch them before I was making this to see like, okay, am I gonna repeat myself? And I might, but to me it's just like so important and kind of a lifesaver in my own life, because it was things that I didn't realize or things that I just didn't know about respect. And that's kind of the basis of this video, is respect, because there is I should say, grammatically correct, there are groups of people who take respecting men to the extreme. Take, my Baptist growing up, men were like over all the women, and you do not disrespect them, you do not talk back, you do not disobey any orders, and you are, need to submit to the man, and blah blah blah. And they took it to the extreme where the wives were getting abused and the kids were getting abused, and I don't like using that word abused lightly, okay? I only really want to use it if it's like a true act of abuse, because I think there are times where people do yell, or people do take something too far, or they do fight a little too hard, or they're too passionate or whatever. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're an abusive person. It doesn't necessarily mean that they need to just lock them up, and throw away the key. I feel like there's definitely gray areas where it's just, no, this person was raised, and they were allowed to hit each other at home, or they were allowed to yell and scream at each other at home, and that's just how they were raised. And now they're an adult trying to figure out how to be in a marriage, and they don't know how to do it calmly, rationally. They don't know how to cope. They don't have any skills. Like, nobody gave them tools to have a marriage and love well, And then if they're raised in a Baptist home where it's like, nope, men's the final say, it doesn't matter how bad they are, it doesn't matter what they do, the women shouldn't, question anything. So I'm just giving generic scenarios, and no, I'm not okay with abuse, I'm not okay with people hitting each other, but I'm saying in the real world, a lot of people are raised that way. I just saw a Kardashians episode, which I can't believe people even take the time to watch them. I'm disgusted most of the time when I see them, because they treat each other horrible. They're so mean, and they're physical with each other. I'm like, what? These are people's like idols? Are you kidding me? They're like slapping each other around. I'm just like, what? So clearly half the world's fine with it, and half the world isn't fine with it. But all that to say, we talk a lot about abuse nowadays. Like, it's coming out. People are allowed to talk about it. People are allowed to have a voice now, and that's exciting. I do love it, because I want my kids to grow up in a world where they can tell their teachers if someone hurts them. They can tell a parent, me obviously, or any of the other dads or whatever, if something's wrong, if they're getting abused, if they're getting hurt or bullied or whatever. I'm so happy that the conversation is opening up. But I think one conversation that has sort of in the background and maybe hasn't been talked about a whole lot, because I feel like men don't talk as much, and maybe there's been a lot of stereotypes for them saying they don't really need to talk about feelings. They don't really need to tell us like how they're feeling, what they're going through, and they probably don't want to appear weak because of like the stereotypical, you need to be a man, be tough, you don't cry, you know, get up, shake it off, blah. And I'm not for men being like sissy or anything like that. I'm not like, hey, I want the man to be weak and I want the women to like take over. I'm not for that at all. I'm hoping that men and women can kind of come together on allowing men to be vulnerable, still be strong, still be a man, still be a guy's guy, whatever you are comfortable with. And if you're a little more feminine, oh well, I don't care about that. I'm talking about like your heart, like being able to express to the person that you're in a relationship with, I don't care if it's a woman or not, if you are a man and you're in a relationship with someone, I'm hoping that you will realize that you can talk about what you need. You can talk about what you need from your partner in life. You know, whether it's just more respect, maybe a softer answer, maybe not, you know, being yelled at, and maybe not called names. Because I don't think that's talked about a whole lot. And I mean, me growing up, my outlook on men was not so good. it was not so good. My picture of men was like, well, all men are abusive, all men are mean, all men are controlling, all men are cheaters, all men are this. And I just had like a very not such a good view of men, you know, like I really didn't think of them as vulnerable or able to get hurt. I didn't think men got their feelings hurt. I didn't think that was possible. Like I just thought like they were just tough as nails and nothing affected them the way it does women. Like I knew women get their feelings hurt and they cry and they maybe whine and they complain and they're like all hurt and stuff. And I knew that because I mean I'm a woman, and then that's what I saw. Like that was my world of like what I watched. I didn't know what like healthy relationships looked like. No offense to my mom, just don't watch this. But I just didn't know. Like in my mind, men were not great. You know, men were bad. They were, well, okay, so my view of men back in the day was either like you were like a perfect pastor that, you know, could do no wrong, and you were like close to God and you could talk to God for us, and you were like the connection between us lowly people and God. Like I saw like pastors as perfection, regular men, not great. You know, just like I just pictured behind every closed door was like an abusive dad, an abusive husband. That's just how I pictured them. I didn't know any different, and I just kind of assumed everything was like a lie. I assumed every actual happy couple was fake, and I assumed all the laughs in church were just because we were around other people and it was more fun and we could all laugh together. But then when everyone went home, I thought it's probably actually scary and everyone's like screaming and fighting at each other. I don't know why that is, but that's kind of like what I pictured. So now in adulthood, I'm like, oh, you can have a happy marriage and nobody's screaming at each other? That's so weird. And like I grew up in more of a yelling environment, and thinking about even the way our pastor preached, okay? He would be like yelling, spitting, like rah, 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 rah. Like he would be screaming preaching. And some people, I remember visiting that kind of a church versus their kind of church, and there was more like contemporary, like non-denomination kind of church where the pastor just talked and laughed and, you know, just talked like I'm talking. And it wasn't like the screaming, but it was just funny thinking about that. Like I grew up more of like, we were yellers, we were loud, we would, you know, yell what we were talking. Like we would be like, no, you did this and you did this, and we would be loud. Like that was just how we were. And I think a lot of families are like that. They just grow up loud and kind of yelling their feelings because they're trying to make a point, and they're like, whoever's loudest kind of wins because that's who's heard, you know. And it's kind of sad, but there are other ways that we can do it, and like I'm still learning. And anytime I'm ever on here like talking, like preaching at anyone, I'm totally not. I'm going based on like, what have I learned? What have I observed? What do I really want to share with somebody? Because I think it could be helpful, and maybe I'm crazy and I'm just nobody and like I couldn't help anybody. I don't know. I'm just a regular person that keeps experiencing these things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such a good point, and I just want to share it. So you don't have to listen to me. I'm no expert. I don't always know what I'm talking about, and maybe I sound like an idiot. I don't know. I just know from experience, going from kind of chaos and the outlook I had on men as a kid to where I'm looking now, which brings me to the Amber Heard and Johnny situation. Okay, I know we've all talked about them way too much, but they have such beautiful arguments because they're so relatable. They're so actually down-to-earth arguments, and so it just opens up this window for what I think men go through a lot, but they don't always express it. They don't always tell the women that they're with or the men that they're with, whatever. They don't always have a way to tell us, because I think for so long we thought like men are tough, they don't have feelings, they don't get hurt feelings, whatever. But if you look into the Amber and Johnny window, you can see Johnny being the shyer one, the calmer one. He's trying to convey how he feels, but he's so ran over, like bulldozed over by someone louder, more manipulative, and better at arguing, because she confuses things. And if you've ever been in that situation, if you're a guy and you're just like, I try to get a word in edgewise, but I can't because she's rambling 1,000 miles a minute, confusing the crap out of me about what are we even fighting about, and then they just kind of give up and feel defeated, and they don't win. They don't win an argument. And so I just think it's super important for us who are not men. and maybe there's, two women out there, and one's more masculine and one's more feminine, and, one of you is one and one of you is the other, whatever. However, I think it's important for any kind of couple, because the basis of what I'm trying to say is like the whole respect thing. If we're disrespecting this person verbally, physically, whatever, it is so hard to feel loved. And I heard a long time ago, and I think read it from a book, that men would much rather have respect than to hear I love you. Like, to hear the words like I respect you, or even just feel the respect in whatever way they interpret respect, which is also a hard level of another thing to deal with, is what's their version of respect? What's their interpretation of respect? Because it could be lots of different things. Like, maybe they feel respected by getting their feet rubbed. Maybe they feel respected because you made their coffee. Maybe they feel respected by you just talking calmly at them and not yelling at them. Maybe they feel respected when you're not calling them names, or when you're not attacking their character. And I think all these things are something a lot of us do to people without realizing how bad it is. We don't realize the damage we're doing. And to them, they could feel very down, abused, and just feel so bad about themselves and so defeated and so unloved. And we just think like, what? I was just telling him he didn't take out the trash for the 50th time. Like, what's the big deal? And to us, we might be like, you're such a baby. Because Amber said that to Johnny all the time. Like, you always run away from me. What's your problem? Because in her mind, I'm guessing, she's thinking, I'm just trying to talk to you. Yes, she's loud. Yes, she's saying mean things, but she's trying to get her opinions across to him, saying, hey, you left me again. Hey, you're ignoring me again. Hey, I feel jealous. Or hey, I'm worried about this and that and the other. And she's passionately trying to tell him something, but he shuts down, runs away. And so nothing is resolved, obviously. And I totally get both sides. I totally get, like, nobody wants to be screamed at. Nobody wants to be, like, belittled. But also, the person passionately talking has something to say. Like, there is something wrong, but she doesn't know how to fix it in a healthy way. So it's like, sometimes both people can be wrong and both people can be right at the same time, because they're both passionately or not passionately trying to get what they need. They're trying to get what they need from each other, but usually they butt heads and then they have to split. and it's really sad. And I'm just noticing that a lot of times, I think, and I hate saying like, oh, women all this and men all this, because I know that's not true. Like, I know everyone's an individual, because you may be born with like with a standard package. Like, each person is born with like a standard package of you're just a human being with human emotions, and then you get influenced by the world, your parents, and everything around you, the nurture versus nature thing. And so there's just, everyone's so different, but I guarantee there's a lot of people that can relate to what I'm saying as far as being respected. And I just feel bad that men have such a bad reputation in a way of a lot of women, because we all think like, oh, they're just so aggressive, they're just like beating people up all the time, and they're just, you know, these monsters or whatever. But really, I think sometimes, in some cases, not all of them, because I don't want anyone getting abused, I don't want anyone getting smacked around, and I don't think you should stay with that person if they are hurting you. But if we can kind of flip the script for just a second and realize that a lot of women push really hard on men, like and I'm like talking to myself, like we can be emotionally super damaging and we don't even know, like we don't realize what we're saying or our tone of voice, because we don't think we sound that bad. Like we don't think, you know, because a lot of women are softer spoken and we're not as loud as men, we think that we're being fine. Like we don't think we're doing anything wrong. And a good example of this would be, I was with someone, and I try to be really careful about who I'm talking about and not to cut anybody down, because I know that can haunt me in more than one way, I'm sure. But I try to be really careful, and even in my own relationship now, I want to respect it and be careful about it. But there are some really good things that I'm learning that I want other people to know. So, anyways, so like I said, the point of this video is just sharing about how I think respect is super important. Like putting respect like in the front of this video. Respect, super important, mostly for men, but I know not all men are the same, not all women are the same. I'm just going based on like what I've observed in my life, what I've watched other women do to men, and yeah, kind of flipping the script. So I used to roll my eyes all the time, and I thought that was nothing. It was nothing. Like rolling your eyes, you know, like I'm not hurting anyone, I'm not yelling at you, I'm not insulting you, just rolling my eyes at something you said. But to that other person, it would trigger like a blow up, and I just never understood it until a decade later. I'm finally realizing that that interpretation for him was a huge deal, and to him that was so disrespectful. And you know, to him it could feel like belittling his opinion and having no respect for him. And as much as I don't agree with a lot of the things he did and a lot of the ways he handled things, I understand now that I don't want to ever do that to someone again. I don't want to make those snotty faces and have a bad attitude towards someone who I'm supposed to be loving. And it's really hard, because sometimes I'm like, get over it. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, okay, so you can call me every name in the book. You can scream your head off. You can get in my face. You can intimidate me. You can threaten me. Oh, and here I am rolling my eyes, and that's a big deal? Really? You know, because like comparison-wise, didn't seem at all the same. And it did. It still, in my mind, I'm like, seriously? Like, really? Who's the bad guy here? Like, oh. But I think it's both wrong. You know, like, we can both be wrong at the same time. It doesn't... it's hard, because it's almost like, you know, God's talking about like a sin is a sin and whatever, but I obviously, rolling your eyes versus getting punched in the face, there is a pretty big difference. You can't go to jail for rolling your eyes. And so I don't really like saying like, oh, all sin is the same, because I don't really think that's true, but it's what I mean. And I know I'm being confusing, and I know I'm saying a lot of stuff, but I really feel like it's important. So just because to you, the one that's doing something that is disrespectful, so let's say I'm doing the disrespectful thing and I don't think it's a big deal, and to me it's nothing, and if someone did that to me, I wouldn't care at all. But to that other person who I am disrespecting, they may feel like it's the end of the world. They may feel so crushed and so down and so humiliated, you know, especially if it's in front of someone. Like if you're in a crowd of friends and you're telling a story and your wife's over there like rolling her eyes and being disrespectful and not being like your supporter, that would crush me, and I'm like not a guy. But you know what I'm saying? So I just really want to say, like, respect is super important, and I don't hear a lot of men talking about it, well, except for like really strict like Baptist people. I mean, I heard it in church all the time, like, you need to submit to your husband and respect him. But I think there's another way to look at it, to not freak all the women out that are all like, women's rights and we need to like climb the whatever on top of the men. And I don't know. I don't really like that, because I don't want to raise a bunch of women to try to dominate men and try to like be, you know, stronger than them, be smarter than them, be richer than them, be like, it doesn't need to be this like competition to like bash them down, because I think that's kind of where a lot of this comes from, is feeling like years of being like suppressed by men as women, and we're like below them and we're serving them and we're always under them. And so it's like it built this generation of disrespectful women that are trying to be more dominant than the man that they're with, and like, you're not telling me what to do, I don't have to listen to anything you say, and you're not going to tell me anything, you know what I mean? Like it's that attitude that I think can be so heartbreaking for the guy, because by nature he probably wants to lead, he probably wants to be in charge of something, because we have a son and he's always asking to be in charge of stuff, just by his nature, since he was super little, always wants to be in charge of stuff. And I like was so annoyed, because I'm like, dude, I'm in charge, stop trying to be in charge. And it would drive me crazy. And then I just realized, like, dude, he's just trying to be manly, like he's trying to grow into a man. And so I started realizing, like, I have to be careful, because I don't want to be the woman in his life pounding it down like, you're not in charge, you're not strong, you're not leading, you know what I mean? Like, and I was probably a terrible person, I don't know, but I mean, it's all learning, like, you don't know until you know, and then you're like, oh my god, I'm sorry. So yeah, I just think there's a lot of men out there that wish so badly they could tell their wives, hey, I just want your respect, if you have a problem with me, come to me in a sweeter way. Like, I think that's, sometimes it's just that simple. Like, hey baby, I know you're working so hard, I know you're doing everything you can to provide for this family, to be there for the kids, and to have enough energy for me, and you know, all of my needs and the things around the house that are broken or whatever, but can you please remember to do XYZ? And maybe they would respond a heck of a lot better than as soon as they walk in the door from work and they're tired and they're angry and just annoyed and hungry, and they're like, hey, it's about time you got home, why are you late? And I needed you to do this, you haven't done this in 3 days, excuse me, do this and that, like, oh, you know, like, you aren't thinking you're doing anything wrong, because you're like, dude, I've been waiting for 3 days, I keep reminding him, he won't do it. And then I'm realizing a lot of men don't really want us to tell them what to do at all, which that's hard, because sometimes, like, I feel like I need to tell him what to do, because otherwise it won't get done, you know, that kind of thing. It's like, but if I don't tell him what to do, he's not going to do it. But then if you tell him, he might not do it at all. So it is a tricky battle. It's a tricky balance. But I have found when I approach things a lot sweeter, things are better. And I think that men want to listen. They want us to be joyful and happy around them. And they want to make their families happy and proud of them. But I think approach is everything when it comes to respect, because just you could practice it in the mirror before you talk to one of your men. Like, just, not that you have multiples, but maybe you do, I don't know. I can't imagine trying to make that work. If you get like 3 or 4 people in a relationship, I don't know how y'all do that, but good luck. This would probably work for you guys too, because if you've more than one wife or something, and you got 2 people yelling at you to do stuff, then yeah, I'm sure they could, you know, try saying things respectfully, and you'd probably appreciate that more. And I know I'm kind of talking to 2 different classes here. Like, okay, women, try to talk to your men more respectfully. Try not to eye roll. Try to ask them things sweeter. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are mad at me for saying all this stuff, but maybe not. I don't know. I mean, I never really thought about it. I never really thought about the things that I was doing that was hurting relationships, because I didn't know they were bad. You know, I didn't know, like, just yelling at a dude to do something could be hurtful to them, or rolling my eyes, or being like, you are a baby, like, what's the problem? Because in my mind, I felt way tougher than some of the guys that I was with, because I was thinking, like, you can't handle anything. Like, I'm barely doing anything, and I've been screamed at, I've been threatened, I've been like chased, I've been like all like through, when you've been through a lot of bad things, you also don't realize like maybe how bad you sound when you're talking to somebody, or how disrespectful you sound, because you've been through so much worse that you're like, psh. But it's not like, say, my husband's fault. If he hasn't been through hell and back in the same way, it doesn't mean that I can treat him badly because I've been through a lot of stuff, or other people have abused me, so therefore whatever I do is definitely not as bad as that, and then I can kind of justify it. And yeah, no, it's not an excuse. Like, I mean, it's to an extent, it's a reason. It's a reason I am the way I am, is abuse from my past, mistreatment from my past, me learning bad cycles. But it's up to me now to, once I find out if I'm doing something disrespectful, if I'm doing something that hurts people and hurts their feelings, which I'm definitely not perfect, and I'm learning all the time of things that I do wrong that I didn't realize, like, oh, I guess that's a bad thing. I don't know. So I'm not sitting here like preaching to everyone thinking I'm perfect. I definitely am not. I've made so many mistakes. And like I said, not realizing, because you don't know until you know. And then once you know, you have to just try your best to break those cycles. Try your best to not act the way you know sounds disrespectful or sounds wrong. Or if you've heard your parents, screaming at each other, and you didn't like the way the mom was treating the dad, or you didn't like the way the dad was treating the mom, you have to work twice as hard to try to undo your example. You had examples in your life that you've watched and seen and influenced you on how you should react during a fight, how should you react during something bad that happens. And so you don't know until you know. And then once you do, you just have to work really, really hard on your responses and your approaches to, mutually respect each other. Obviously, I want women to be respected too. But right now, I mean, we all know women get abused. We all know that women, like we all know, like we've all talked about that. What we don't really talk about is the other side of it, where women can push men really far. And I'm not saying like, oh, it's every time a woman gets hit, it's her fault. I'm not saying that at all. Of course not. There are definitely different situations where for some reason a man grows up hitting people, probably since the time he was in kindergarten, and no one taught him how not to hit. Like, that's what I believe. I believe that usually abusive men just never found a way to cope. They never got those tools. No one ever took them aside and taught him, well, what do I do with all my anger? What do I do with all my rage? What do I do when this woman's driving me absolutely nuts? Well, he's always just hit because he's mad. And, kids on the playground, they just automatically hit. And that's why I kind of feel like it's controversial about, like, the hitting thing, because it's like you watch all the violence movies and all the just violence in general in our worlds, and kids are just born hitting, pinching, biting. They're just born like that. And it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of teaching to not hit, because it's like an animalistic thing. You are literally born with that skill. Like, you are born to fight back and to keep yourself safe. So if a man grows up without tools to know how to calm himself down or how to walk away, which can incite more of a fight if you're Johnny Depp, because he would walk away and that would make her even more mad, and then she would be the physical one. And I think that is so unfair. And it just got me thinking, like, how many more men out there are having to fight tooth and nail to keep themselves from hurting their wives? Because it seems that a lot of men could get hit time and time again by their wives, but if he hits her once, he could go to prison. And I just think that is really, really sad and very wrong, because that it's just not right. Like, I don't think any wife should be able to hit their husband. If he can't hit her back, she should not hit him either, because she should be able to cope just like he would have to cope on not hitting, on not disrespecting. Because if you don't want to be called names all day, a wife should not be calling her husband mean names, and shouldn't be disrespectful. And, like, have I been disrespectful? Yeah. Have I gotten too loud? Yeah. Have I said things that I should not say? Yeah. Because when you're angry, you do say stupid stuff. When you're angry, you do things that you wouldn't normally do if you weren't, like, super angry. But I'm just learning, like, I just feel so bad for men, because I have watched a lot of women treat men badly and just not realizing how much it would affect them. And now as an adult, I can see men feeling defeated. I can see men even at Menards, like the wives, the way they talk to him and or them, like the way the wives talk to the husbands, it's actually heartbreaking. Like now I see where men would feel just awful, and like they're, you know, they could be working 2 jobs, you know, remodeling the wife's house 3 times, and they're still just witchy at them and disrespectful and not thankful at all. They're not, you know, worshiping their feet. They're not like giving them a massage. They're not like doing anything kind, you know, they're just like mean and nasty, and the dude's trying so hard, but then the wife would probably complain if he wasn't like attentive enough. But the dude's probably like maxed out mentally. So I talked way too long. I'm so sorry. I was like gonna try to keep this short, but here I am just preaching all day about how to be respectful, which I don't even know if I helped. I don't know if I sometimes like I'm talking, trying to get so much out, but I don't know if I actually made my points that I wanted to make. I should take notes, but I'm so scatterbrained that I would probably read them and like still get sidetracked and bunny rabbit trail. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things we can do differently as wives to our husbands that would make our lives better. Especially like because the wives are like the talky ones and probably louder sometimes. And yeah, there are definitely things that we can do to make their lives better. And it could be super simple things, like just if we have a problem with them, which most of us will, you know that, guys, we do, you know, hate the pee on the seat, or, you know, the trash not taken out, or whatever, or the tools still laying out from 6 weeks ago. You know, you do things that probably drive us nuts, and we do things that drive you nuts. And we're not going to think that they're a big deal. We're not going to think that rolling our eyes is a big deal. We're not going to think the things we say to you have an effect on you, especially if it doesn't give us results. Like if we're like, God, you're lazy, or oh, you're like, if we're insulting you over and over again, thinking like we're trying to motivate you, be like, bro, you haven't done this, blah, blah, blah. We don't realize the damage unless you tell us. So I encourage you to tell your partners in life. Tell them how you're feeling, because they may be blown away by what you're perceiving of them. Like, tell them what you think in a calm way. Like, go out to dinner and talk about it, or just like sit and cuddle on the couch and be like, hey, look, there's some things that are really bothering me, some things that you've said to me, you don't know the impact that it has on me. And you can say like, it cuts me deep. It's describe it. Like, how does it make you feel when someone says you're lazy, or you're, you know, you're not working hard enough, or you're not doing enough around the house? Does that bother you? And then tell them, because they may not realize what they're doing to you. Because I promise you, like, I didn't know that the little things that I would say that was like a pinprick, you know, that really would mess with their minds. Like, I didn't know. I didn't know. So now I try to work on it. And once I start getting like angry about something, if I'm like, you know, all nagging, as they say, which I hate, because like most of the time we're not nagging. It feels like nagging. To you, it seems like this nagging little chihuahua, but it's not. We are trying to get through to you that we need something. Okay, so it's like we need to come together and realize she has needs. She's not approaching it in a super great way. So teach the person that you're with how they can come to you in a respectful way and an efficient way. How can we get things done together? Like, how can we be a team? She gets what she needs, he gets what he needs, and both respect each other. Because otherwise it's just a miserable marriage. And I don't know the actual percentages nowadays, but the last I heard, 50% of people who get married get divorced. And there's so many people I know that are divorced or on their second marriage, and it's like, it's pretty pathetic. It's pretty pathetic that after all these years, like, we haven't figured out how to stay together. Like, come on. I realize everyone is so different. Everyone comes from such different childhoods, and everyone has such different needs. But you just have to figure out the recipe. Like, what are the recipes of each other's needs? And even though the other person might not like fulfilling that need that they have over here, you need to learn the recipe. Learn each other's recipes of what they need, how to feel fulfilled, and both be respected. Okay? That's what I'm trying to do. And I'm not perfect. Tonight I'll probably be like, husband, you are blah, 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 blah. And I'll probably be mad because he's playing Fortnite or something like that without me. I'm sure I'll have a complaint today. I'm sure I will. But I will practice what I preach and try really hard to have a nice approach, or say nothing unless it's really necessary. And yeah, So, men, I believe that you are strong, you are tough, you are manly, but we realize that you have a heart. And from all the women, I apologize that we don't always know the effects we have on how we're treating you. Like, we just don't. We don't think of us as like, we're the monsters, and we're the abusive ones. Like, I honestly don't think women picture themselves like that. We don't picture ourselves as like the stronger ones, the aggressive ones, the meaner ones. But I think it's just because we don't realize. We don't always realize unless you tell us what we're doing in a nice way. Just like, practice it on us. How do you want us to act towards you? And then do that to us and see how it goes, Nicely approach us and be like, hey, I have a little bit of a problem. Hoping you can help me with it. It's you. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of different ways we could approach things that are not so terrible and argumentative and degrading and shameful. Like, we just, it's a funny example. We were in a McDonald's drive-thru, and I was so distracted by the couple in front of me that I left the lady still talking back there because I was like, oh, because it was me and my daughter, and we had our windows down, and the people in front of us had their windows down, and she was like, really? Why do I have to give up my swear word, blah, 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 for you, or something like that? Like, why would she sacrifice her stuff for him? And, she had, like, the long nails out, and I don't know what it is, like, girls with, like, fake nails. Sometimes I think they're mean. It's like, okay, okay, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that, but sometimes they're just, like, a little bit more hoity-toity, and they just seem brattier to me. And, do I want to wear them? Yeah, I do. I wish I could, but I'm just doing too many dishes and cleaning, and they just get disgusting, so I just don't even try. So I let my kids paint my nails all the time. That's not to say I'm better than anybody else with fake nails, okay? That's not what I mean. I just mean, like, that's like a Kardashian thing. I don't know. Like, they just seem like not the submissive type of wives. Wives. Whatever. So this was gonna, I could just see her nails out there, like, I'll give up my crap for you, blah, 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 and just screaming at this dude. And I was like, oh, this is so embarrassing. And then the lady at the window was like, hey guys, how you doing? She's trying to be so nice, and they had to immediately like be silent and try to pretend their way through the McDonald's thing. And I was like, meh, 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 meh. It's just like, oh my god. And I do see it a lot at Menards too, where a wife will be so mean to the man. And then the other day I did have like that guy say like I was dumb and his wife was dumb. He definitely a-holing it to the store. And I know men and women the same. They can all be mean to each other. We can all be wrong to each other. We can all be disrespectful. But today was just focusing on, I realize that women can definitely do damage. Might be a little more subtle, might be a little bit more manipulative, might be a little more hurtful, quietly, in the words that we say. But I just encourage men to just calmly let your wives know, like, what do we do as women that does hurt you? Or put a comment in here, like, teach us. I want, if, because like a lot of guys don't feel like they can talk, I don't think. And I mean, I really can't talk. I can't talk for men, not a guy. I won't pretend like I know how you feel. I'm just saying what I've observed about men, and I want to open that conversation. I want you to talk about it. So please feel free to comment. Like, this is a learning moment for women. So if other women come on here and they see guys' opinions, like, I want to open up that conversation and see like, oh, and just put us in check and let us explore our relationships of, like, am I doing that to my husband? Was I disrespectful? Was I hurting his feelings by the way I was talking to him? Was I not really loving him well by how I approached the situation? And does he get more hurt than I realized? Because that could be totally true, and I want to know. So please comment. Yeah, I try to do different things on my channel, so I'm sorry it's like an ADD wonderland of content, because sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's serious, sometimes it's abuse, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's whatever. And I try to mix it up because life is just full of different things, and you're just getting an inside window of my crazy brain and all the different things I think about. So yeah, I am not a perfect wife. I'm far from it. I am probably a terrible person in general. I'm just always doing my best. So if I was raised and I'm a bad person, I am still trying every day to like get better and better and better. I have my skeletons, my demons, my struggles, the things I hate about myself. I have all of those things. I'm just a regular person. But if any time I think of something that I think would benefit someone else's relationship, I'm gonna say it. And you can ignore me if it's no good. Okay, I gotta stop talking. Bye.